Welcome to the second video in a series of videos comparing HoA to HHA. This time I'll be comparing the second episode of HoA with the second and third episodes of HHA. It'll totally get progressively more complicated. I do also want to mention something that I think I might have failed to mention previously, which is I am making these comparisons as I'm watching them. This means that there may be instances of certain comparisons not being valid as we move forward due to new information being revealed. That is already the case with at least one point from the previous video I made. I will not mention them nor correct them moving forward, so just keep it in mind. In this episode, Victor tells the girls that Joyce's parents took her out of the house. Patricia is upset and what seems to have Joyce's home phone number. Nina gets to meet the classmates/housemates. Patricia hates her, Fabian might have a crush on her, and everyone else doesn't really care. Patricia tries to get answers out of her and Victor. At the breakfast table, a food fight breaks out, and Patricia pours water all over Nina. Meanwhile, Amber has relationship issues with her sexist boyfriend. Nina gets a call and has a breakdown. The next day, Patricia annoys Victor. Later, Victor burns Joyce's possessions from the previous episode. That must be some sort of hazard. Mick and Mara have a moment in front of Amber where he calls her biology babe and calls them studying a date. In front of your girlfriend? Amber is jealous, but Mara calms her down. Victor drops the pen. Patricia, preparing for bed, sees a message on the mirror spell out, "Help me, Joy." And that's all there is to episode 2 of HoA. It seems like Amber let Yankee in after all, as Patricia finds her there and takes the bunny plush she found out of her hand. Yankee meets everyone at the breakfast table. The girls don't like her for various reasons. Fabian seems to like her. Mick and Amber have relationship issues as Mick is acting cold towards her. Patricia pressures Yankee for answers about Joyce. The comedic duo are playing with food and accidentally throw it at Yankee, which inspires Patricia to threaten her with a plate of spaghetti. Patricia tries to pressure Victor for answers about Joyce. Victor says that Joyce is gone, and Yankee cries on the phone call with her grandma. Patricia and Apu bond over bullying Yankee. Victor talks to Corvus about evil things. The girls ask Victor for Joyce's home phone number. He refuses to give it. Patricia is even more suspicious of Victor. Victor does a pin job. No one cares. Mara gossips with Amber in her bed. Yankee cries herself to sleep while Victor burns the bunny plush. It's the start of another day. Mara has the great idea of having a party since Victor is away from the house on Saturdays. No one supports her idea except for Yankee. Mick flirts with Mara so she'd help him with his presentation. Later that evening, Patricia discovers writing on the foggy mirror. As she runs out of the bathroom, Yankee walks in. Meanwhile, Mick is trying to get Fabian's advice on which bracelet to give to Amber, and they end up talking about Yankee. Back in the bathroom, Yankee cleans the mirror. Patricia comes back with Mara and sees her. Patricia gets angry while Mara tries to keep her reasonable. The next morning is Sunday, and Yankee is going to visit her grandma. Morning shenanigans ensue. Patricia is even more suspicious of Yankee. First, because she's not here right now with grandma. Second of all, with the mirror incident. And third of all, where is Joyce? Jerome is sexist. I'm never going to say his name correctly. I know how to say it, I'm not going to. Amber eats her jealousy away. Fabian is king of avoiding. Meanwhile, Yankee has a lovely time with her grandma until she notices a painting of the House of Anubis in the elderly home. An elderly woman who clearly is not quite there in the head warns her that it's a dangerous place with a scary attic and a big black bird. And just walks off. In the evening, Patricia decides to prank Yankee and gets Appy in on it. Yankee has nightmares about what the elderly lady said. And that's the end of episode 3 of HHA. HOA does not have a recap at the beginning of the episode, and will not, as a rule of thumb, do that moving forward. HOA Episode 2 starts right where Episode 1 left off, while HHA starts with a new day and doesn't show how the situation gets resolved, only how it ends up. Victor officially announcing to us that Joy is gone happens in different places with different characters around. In HHA, it happens in the dining area in front of the whole cast when Patricia asks about Joyce. In HOA, it happens in the middle of an argument Nina and Patricia are having after Patricia threw Nina out, with no one else around. Patricia gets the bunny plush in a slightly different way, since she and the main character don't live in the same room in HHA. Nina meets everyone in the middle of mocking jokes and suspicion towards her thrown around in the living room. And afterward, they eat. Nika meets everyone at the breakfast in the dining room. When Amber tells Nina that it's her seat, Amber walks out of the room straight away and Nina sits back down, saying that she can sit there since Amber's not there. When Amber tells Nyanka it's her seat, Nyanka gets up and sits at a different place straight away. The interaction between Mick and Amber is much shorter in HHA, with Mick coming off a lot colder and disinterested than in HOA. Amber expresses her insecurity in the relationship straight away in HHA. In HOA, there's a full-on food fight at the table, while in HHA, it's just the comedic duo messing around and it going on Nyanka. In HHA, Patricia threatens Nyanka with a plate of spaghetti and is stopped by Victor. In HOA, in the food fight, Patricia quote-unquote accidentally spills water on Nina. Nina cuts the call with her grandma short by saying they're busy with dinner, but Nyanka, being less talkative than Nina, doesn't do that. Fabian in HOA walks in on Nina crying, but Fabian in HHA doesn't walk in on Nyanka. Patricia in HOA talks about the disappearance of Joy with Victor when she and Nina were having an argument. In HHA, Patricia confronts Victor for answers in the dining room scene. Fabian and Mick spontaneously talk about Nina in the dining room sometime in the morning in episode 2 of HOA. But they talk in their room in the evening in episode 3 of HHA about Nyanka. And not spontaneously, but in the context of girls, as Mick tries to figure out which bracelet to give to Amber. Patricia alone goes to Victor to ask for Joyce's home number in the HOA, but with Mara in HHA. When Patricia asks Victor about Joyce's home number, he is attending to his bird. But in HHA, when Patricia asks for Joyce's number, he is talking to his bird about the disappearance and his inability to talk about it. Joy left her phone at the house, but Joyce didn't, which means that there's a line in HHA talking about how Patricia tried and couldn't get a hold of her, while in HOA there's a joke where Amber suggests texting Joy instead, since she left her phone. Victor in HOA starts the burning of Joyce's possessions off-screen and does it in a bin in his office. In HHA, we actually see Victor put the bunny plush on the fire, as it cuts from gossip to Nick having a bad time sleeping to, well, the burning. Victor in HHA doesn't get to smash anything, as the bunny plush was the only thing Joyce left. But Victor in HOA gets to smash a phone on the screen. In HHA, we actually get to see Nyanka's and Joyce's files, though not what's in them. In HOA, they don't appear. In episode 2 of HOA, we get a brief scene of Mara third-wheeling Amber and Meg's relationship, while in episode 2 of HHA, there is no such scene, and in episode 3, it's Amber who is essentially third-wheeling as she jealously looks at Meg and Mara sitting closely on the couch. In episode 2 of HHA, Mara sneaks into Amber's room to gossip in her bed, while in HOA they live together and don't have a scene talking about Meg, until Meg comes into their room and asks Mara to help with biology, calling her biology babe.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
In HOA episode 2, Mick asks Mara to help with biology, but in episode 2 of HHA, such a scene doesn't exist, but a similar scene appears in episode 3, but in a different room, and Mick asks for help with the presentation instead. In HHA, Appy says to Victor that they still have 3 minutes and runs off straight away without really facing Victor, while in HoA, Appy runs into Victor and says that there are still 4 minutes left. Patricia sees the writing on the mirror at the end of episode 2 of HoA, but in the middle of episode 3 of HHA. What generally stands out to me in this is how bold Patricia is in HHA. She's fully confident in what everyone thinks is madness and keeps pushing for answers. She straight up says no to Victor's requests and demands multiple times in these episodes. In comparison, Patricia from HoA just seems less capable of sticking up for herself. She doesn't just take every opportunity to pressure someone for answers like Patricia from HHA. It makes her just seem so much stronger, and not always in a good way, and she completely dismisses the possibility of the protagonist being a good person. But we need a bit of drama, so I'm not too mad about it. The Patricia in HoA seems more to the point with her actions, but just less insistent and more all over the place. Nyenka, she just still seems like a more genuine character than Nina, and Nyenka's grandma seems more alive and present, maybe because she actually has a storyline and we actually get a taste of who she is as a person. We simply don't know anything about Nina's grandmother, except for her voice, which doesn't sound much like a grandmother, and the conversation fails to be meaningful. Nina, unlike Nyenka, shows a bit of rougher underbelly in the scene with Amber's seed. Nyenka, on the other hand, is shown to just struggle with fitting in, not even being comfortable to keep making attempts and being extra careful with everyone, which makes her a more empathetic and realistic character. It also doesn't hurt that Nyenka's actress does a better job acting. The Mara Mick Amber love triangle seems to be deeper in HHA. Perhaps it's because Amber is a lot less of a dumb blonde trope and is more aware of her surroundings and Mick's disinterest in the relationship and the sudden interest in Mara. Or perhaps it's a mixed signal the audience gets from Mick, who on one hand makes an effort to get Amber a present, but on the other hand flirts and hangs out with Mara, who clearly has a crush on him. In any case, this plot involving the triangle feels a lot more two-dimensional in HoA, where Amber is less sure of Mick and his feelings and doesn't think much of Mara as a sort of threat to her relationship. Mara in HHA is more spineless. She doesn't get involved much and acts as a mediator, or tries to. She's not really active enough to balance out someone like Patricia and not interesting enough to root for in the love triangle. It just feels like people use her and she doesn't have a stance on anything herself, only slight worries and concerns. I do think it would be interesting to see her evolve in the future if such time comes, which I hope it does. Amber is a lot more likable in HoA due to less hate towards Nina than Amber towards Nyenka, less serious showcases of jealousy towards Mick and Mara, and more dumb blonde jokes and a more bubbly nature of the character. It does take away from the dimensions of the love triangle and partially Amber herself, but it gives the series the air that it needs. I also like the burning scene in HHA more, as it feels more meaningful when we cut back and forth to see what Victor will actually do to the poor thing. I do think it could have been done better though. The pin drop scene though is so much better in HoA. It's more cinematic and has more impact. As a character, Victor in HoA is still better in my eyes than Victor in HHA. He just seems so much more authoritarian and threatening than in HHA, where it feels like everyone can stand up to him and bend his rules to their own will. Jerome in HHA is an asshole. Enough said about him. I also personally like Alfie more than Uppy. I'm not sure why, but this is a section of my personal opinion, so here we are.